We have Dr. Don Sawyer, and he's assistant professor of sociology, and he's going to be, the title of his presentation is Sociological Swag, Reinventing Scholarship Through a Hip-Hop Lens.
Can you hear me? All right. So what do you mean when you say I'm rebellious? Because I don't accept everything that you're telling us. What are you selling us? The Creator dwells in us. I sit in your unknown class while you're failing us. I failed your class because I ain't with your reasoning. You're trying to make me you by seasoning up my mind with see Jane walk. See John walk in a hardcore New York. Come on now, it's like a chocolate cow. It doesn't exist, no way, no how. Seems to me that in a school that's ebony, African history should be pumped up steadily, but it's not. And it's got to stop. See spot, run, get spot, insulting to a black mentality, a black way of life in a jet black family. So I conclude with one concern that you must learn, right? And so when I heard that voice when I was a young whippersnapper, or whatever that is, when I was growing up in New York City, I heard that. And that's a verse by one of my favorite teachers and one of my favorite hip-hop philosophers, Chris Parker, better known as KRS-One. And so at that moment in time, I realized the importance of hip-hop and education and the fact that they didn't have to exist in separate spaces. And he called this edutainment. And that's my foray, that's my entry into using hip-hop culture in educational spaces. So before I became a professor, I thought I was going to be a rapper. Right, and so that's me right there about 21 years ago, D-Smooth, the DSM double OVE, that's me, right? And so I had dreams, right? I was gonna be a rapper and I was gonna make a whole lot of money, right? But there's this thing called reality, and I became a sociologist, right? Not a whole lot of money. There's a difference, right? And so one of the things that I do is people say, why do you use hip hop in the classroom space? And I think it's important for us to entertain and to deal with why I would use hip hop, right? In this graffiti piece, it says, don't blame yourself, blame hip hop. If you heard a lot of the commentary on hip hop, a lot of people blame hip hop for the plight of urban spaces, right? As if there's not poverty, as if they're not hyper-policed neighborhoods, as if there's not divestment in these neighborhoods, as if they're not poor schools, right? People tend to use hip hop as a scapegoat, and that's problematic, right? And so I like to use hip hop in the school space because I think people need to be creative, right? We need to tie into the arts and bring that into the school space, and we can transform these educational spaces. And so the work that I do with young people, specifically Black and Latino males, is to use hip hop to counter dominant narratives of Black male existence. If you think about the Black male, and if you think about what you see in the news, what you see in the media, it's not necessarily always painted as a pretty picture, and that's problematic. And so we use the creative art of rhyming and rapping to kind of go against and counter these dominant narratives of Black male existence. The other thing that I do is to move students out of this space, right? Garrett Albert Duncan coined this term beyond love, right? He talks about the fact that, Black males suffer these conditions, and pretty much they exist in the space beyond love in these urban schools, right? They're pushed to the side. They're seen as a population that respect is not due to them, and they don't deserve love, right? And so they're pushed to the side, and so they exist in this space beyond love, and that's problematic, and I want to do things to counteract that. The other thing that we see in schools is this pipeline, right? Some people might call it the school to prison pipeline or different cycles where we have shame, silencing, and deficit perspectives. Students are shamed when they come into these spaces. Why do you look like that? Why do you walk like that? Why do you talk like that? Why do you listen to that music? They can't necessarily resist, and so they're silenced, and they're seen through lens of deficits as opposed to possibilities. Then we have anger, and we have the acceptance of the labels, right? And so if you have acceptance of the labels, some of you may have heard of the self-fulfilling prophecy, that students start to behave in the ways in which they are labeled. So if they are labeled a troubled student, they live up to the terms that they're given in the school. And so if you have this anger and you have the self-fulfilling prophecy, then it meets with the zero tolerance policies that are in schools, it leads to a lot of suspensions. When students are repeatedly suspended, they fall behind. And when students continue to fall behind, they end up dropping out. So if you're a Black and Latino male and you drop out of high school, you don't have a high school diploma, you're pretty much unemployable. And if you're unemployable, you're more likely to go into the underground market. If you go into the underground market, you're more likely going to get arrested and go to prison, right? And so we have this school to prison pipeline. And so my question is, what are we doing to interrupt this? What are we doing to get our Kanye West on and interrupt? That's when he interrupted her own thing, right? So what are we doing to get our Kanye West on and interrupt this pipeline? And so one of the things, or one of the ways in which sociologists, we get critiqued is that we'll research something, tell you how messed up it is, and say, see you later, and we're on to the next topic, right? That's one of the critiques that I've heard about sociology. But as an applied sociologist, I believe I'm supposed to use my sociological training to produce positive social change through active intervention, right? And that's what I do. And so doing that, I created this program, the Crossroads Collective, at an urban high school here in New Haven, Connecticut. And so what I was faced with, the teacher, one of the assistant principals was in a presentation that I was given, and she said, can you come to my school? I heard that you were moving to Connecticut. Can you come to my school? So I was like, okay. I went to the school. They said, we have a problem with Black and Latino males not coming to school, missing classes, and all of this. And so we want you to develop a program to fix the world. I'm like, okay, yes, that's what I'm going to do. And so I developed this program, and I was like, when do you want it to be? And they said, we want it to be 9 o'clock Thursday mornings. I'm like, 9 o'clock on Thursday mornings? You just told me that they don't come to school, so you're going to give it to me 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning, in the morning. Okay. So the first day, I show up. The principal was like, I don't know if anyone's going to be there, so I just want to get you prepared. So we show up to the room. All 25 students are there waiting for us at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh, okay. So they heard something about hip-hop was going to be in the school, so that brought them out. The next week I go in, 44 students show up, right? And so we're like, okay, what is this about? And so one of the things that I wanted to do is what Grandmaster Cass said from the Cold Crush Brothers. He said, hip-hop didn't invent anything. Hip-hop reinvented everything, right? So I wanted to use hip-hop to reinvent these classroom spaces. And so we allowed students to write about their pain, about their joys, about their sorrows, about love, about hating teachers, whatever they wrote about. We allowed them to do it, and they started to share these things. And some of the teachers were like, I never saw them in this light. And I say, because you never allowed them to show this side of themselves. And so one of the things that the principal gave me, this is like when we first started, right? She gave me the grades of students in the year before we started this program. And so you see F's and a C. And then she gave me the grades for after we started the program. And so we saw these students go from F's to B's, C's, and B's. And some of them went from F's to D's. But we weren't tutoring them, right? I wasn't tutoring them in English. I wasn't tutoring them in math. God knows you don't want me to tutor them in math. But we started to see increases in grades. We started to see disciplinary referrals go down, attendance go up, right? And again, we're not tutoring them, right? And again, this student, straight F's, went to C's and D's. Another student, straight F's, went to C's and D's. And so the reason why I show you this, and she saw that, and she was like, okay, I want you to come back. And I was like, okay. And so she wondered, like, why was this happening? Because we weren't tutoring them. And so the students felt that they were being respected in that place. They felt that their humanity was being respected. They felt that I respected them, and so in turn, they respected me. They felt that they were loved. They felt that they were nurtured, and they knew that they were going to be challenged in that classroom space. And so that energy was then transferred to the other places within the school. And so we saw the positive impacts of allowing youth culture to come into a school, to understand that and respect them as humans, and to understand that they had the ability to sophisticatedly articulate the lived experiences and realities, and we needed to listen. And so this is the work that I do. I believe in sociological, research-driven social change. Thank you very much.